Welcome to the deep dive. We take the topics you're curious about, the stuff you send us, and basically pull out the key knowledge you need.
Yeah, think of it as a shortcut to getting informed, but, with some interesting bits thrown in.
Exactly. You want those aha moments, practical stuff, without wading through everything. That's what we aim for.
And today, we are definitely diving deep into something many of you wanted covered. James Clear's Atomic Habits. An easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones.
Okay, yeah, this one's huge. But before we get into the how, the author's own story is pretty intense, right? James Clear, I mean.
Oh, absolutely. It's quite the backstory. He had this devastating injury. We're talking a medically induced coma, serious facial fractures.
Yeah, temporary blindness, lost his sense of smell. It's just hard to even imagine recovering from that.
It really is. But he did. And not just physically, he went from that low point to becoming an academic All-American, then a successful entrepreneur, and obviously the author of this book that's helped millions.
It really sets the stage, doesn't it? It shows the power behind these small changes he talks about.
Precisely. And that's the core idea, isn't it? How these tiny, almost invisible habits, atomic habits, they compound, like interest in a bank account.
But it works both ways, right?
Yeah.
Good habits build up, but the bad ones.
Exactly. It's a double-edged sword. Small positive steps lead to amazing results over time, but those little negative habits, the ones you barely notice, they can really drag you down if you let them pile up.
So let's get specific. Atomic habit. What does he actually mean by atomic?
Well, think chemistry. Atoms are the basic building blocks, right? The smallest fundamental unit of a molecule.
Okay.
So an atomic habit is like that. It's a tiny fundamental behavior. It's the building block of a larger system, the thing that ultimately leads to those big results you want.
Right. So it's not about massive overnight transformations. It's about the tiny bricks.
Exactly. And he pulls in this idea from British cycling, the aggregation of marginal gains.
Oh, yeah. Dave Brailsford, that whole 1% thing.
That's the one. The idea was find every single tiny aspect of cycling performance and just improve it by 1%, just 1%. The bike seat, the tire grip, the rider's nutrition, even the pillars they slept on.
And the thinking was all those tiny improvements would add up.
Precisely. And it worked incredibly well for them. They went from, pretty average to dominating the sport.
So how does that 1% idea work for us
Yeah.
in everyday life?
Clear uses this really striking math. If you get just 1% better each day for a year, you don't end up 365% better. You end up nearly 37 times better.
37 times. Wow.
Yeah. But the flip side is just as dramatic. If you get 1% worse each day, you basically end up near zero. That graph in the book, Figure 1, really shows that exponential curve.
So habits really are the compound interest of self-improvement, as he puts it.
That's the perfect phrase for it. And it applies everywhere. Productivity, one extra small task daily, adds up massively over a career.
Or knowledge, like the
Yeah.
Warren Buffett idea.
Right. Buffett says knowledge builds up like compound interest. Learning one new thing each day seems small, but stick with it.
Yeah, and relationships too, I guess. Small gestures.
Exactly. Being consistently a little more thoughtful, it builds strong connections.
But it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
You start small, you're doing the 1% thing, but you don't see results straight away. It feels like nothing's happening.
Yes. The valley of disappointment. That's a crucial concept.
The valley of disappointment.
Sounds about right. And the plateau of latent potential. We expect progress to be linear,
Yeah.
a straight line upwards. But with compounding, the biggest gains are backloaded. They come later.
So you're putting in the effort day after day doing these tiny things.
And it feels like you're flatlining, but really you're building potential. You have to stick with it long enough to break through that plateau. That's when you see the real impact.
Persistence is key then. Got to push through that valley.
Absolutely. You have to trust the process, even when the results aren't obvious yet.
Okay, so small habits, big results, but be patient.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, another big idea in the book is shifting focus from goals to systems. Why is that so important?
This is a really core part of his philosophy. We're all told, set smart goals, specific, measurable, etc.
Right, goal setting is like rule number 1 for achievement.
Yeah, and goals give you direction, absolutely. But Clear argues it's the systems, the daily habits and processes that actually determine if you make progress.
He makes that point, doesn't he, that winners and losers often have the exact same goals. Like, everyone in the Olympics wants a gold medal.
Exactly. The goal itself doesn't differentiate them. What does is the system of training, nutrition, recovery, the daily grind. And focusing only on the goal can be problematic For one, it kind of ties your happiness to achieving that specific outcome.
Yeah, that I'll be happy when. So
Right.
when I lose the weight, when I get the promotion.
Right. It postpones happiness, and
Yeah.
it sets up this binary thing. Either you hit the goal and you're a success, or you miss it and you're a failure. Life's usually messier than that.
So what is a system then in this context?
A system is basically the collection of habits, the process you follow regularly. It's about continuous improvement, playing the long game.
And that leads to his big statement.
Right. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. That's it, right there. Your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits.
Okay, that's powerful. Focus on the process, the system, not just the finish line. So how do we actually build these systems? That brings us to the 4 laws, yeah.
Exactly. This is the practical core of the book. He breaks down habit formation into 4 simple steps, based on the cue, craving, response, reward loop.
Cue, craving, response, reward. Okay.
And he gives us 4 laws to influence that loop. The first law is make it obvious.
Make the cue obvious. Why start there?
Because so many habits run on autopilot, unconsciously. The things that trigger them are just part of our environment. We don't even notice them.
Like Carl Jung said, make the unconscious conscious.
Precisely. If you're not aware of the cue, you can't change the habit. So the first step is just awareness. He suggests that habit scorecard thing, just listing your habits to see them clearly.
But how do you make good cues more obvious?
Well, one fascinating technique he mentions is pointing and calling, used in Japan.
On the railways and stuff.
Yeah, and other safety-critical jobs. Workers physically point at something important, a signal, a gauge, and call out its status. Signal is green.
Seems simple, but effective.
Hugely effective. Studies show it cuts errors dramatically, like up to 85%. It forces conscious attention.
Wow. Okay, so how do we point and call in our own lives?
We use implementation intentions. It's basically making a super specific plan for when and where you'll do a habit.
The formula. I will behavior at time and location.
Exactly, like I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. It removes the ambiguity. Research shows this makes you way more likely to actually do it.
Makes sense. It primes you. And then there's habit stacking.
Right.
Mhm.
That's linking a new habit you want to build onto one you already do.
So after current habit, I will new habit.
Yep. After I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 60 seconds. The coffee becomes the obvious cue for meditating. You leverage existing routines.
You could sort of slot new habits into your day using old ones as triggers.
Exactly. Be specific about the cue, the preceding habit, and it makes it much easier to remember.
And the last part of making it obvious is environment design. This seems huge.
Oh, it's massive. Our environment shapes our behavior constantly, often without us realizing. Visual cues are incredibly powerful.
Because most of our sensory input is visual.
Right. So design your space to make good cues visible and bad cues invisible. Want to take vitamins? Put the bottle right by your toothbrush. Want to practice guitar? Put it on a stand in the middle of the room.
Make the good habit the path of least resistance, visually.
Exactly. And hide the bad ones. Put the junk food on a high shelf, maybe in an opaque container. Make the cues for bad habits less obvious.
Like that Schiphol airport fly sticker example in the urinals. A tiny visual cue changed behavior.
Perfect example. Subtle, but effective. The key is you're not passive. You can architect your environment to support your goals. Make the cues obvious.
Okay, law 1, make it obvious, got it. Law 2, make it attractive. Why attractiveness?
Because craving drives habits. We do things we want to do, things we find appealing. And that appeal often comes from anticipating the reward.
Dopamine, right, the brain chemical.
Exactly. And interestingly, dopamine spikes more in anticipation of a reward than when you actually get it. It's the wanting, the craving that really motivates us.
Like gambling addicts getting the buzz before the bet.
Precisely. So to build a habit, we need to make it attractive, link it to positive feelings, boost that anticipation.
How do we do that? He talks about temptation bundling.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. You pair something you want to do with something you need to do.
Like only watching your favorite trashy TV show while you're on the treadmill.
Exactly. You bundle the temptation, the show, with the beneficial habit, exercise.
Right.
It makes the exercise more attractive because you get the immediate reward of the show.
Clever. What else makes habits attractive? Social norms.
Hugely influential. We're social creatures. We want to fit in. We tend to imitate the habits of 3 groups. The close, friends, family. The many, the culture, the norm. And the powerful, people we admire.
So hang out with people who have the habits you want.
Basically, yes. Join a group, a community where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. It makes it instantly more attractive. Like nerd fitness makes getting fit feel normal and appealing for that specific community.
It leverages that desire to belong.
Right. Shared identity makes a habit stick. And you can also work to make bad habits unattractive.
Like the Alan Carr's smoking cessation method.
Exactly. His method is all about reframing, systematically dismantling the positive associations people have with smoking, highlighting the negatives until the craving itself diminishes because smoking just seems pointless, unattractive.
So you change the story you tell yourself about the habit.
You change the prediction. If you predict it will be unsatisfying, the craving reduces. And ultimately, habits become attractive when they promise to satisfy our underlying motives, connections, status, health, etc.
We can even reframe hard habits.
Right.
Change have to get to.
Yes. That subtle shift in mindset is surprisingly powerful. I get to wake up early to work on my project feels different from I have to wake up early. It associates the habit with opportunity, not obligation.
Creates more positive anticipation, like
Yeah.
a motivation ritual.
Mm-hmm. Like listening to a specific pump-up song before you exercise. You associate the enjoyable cue with the habit.
Now, one important distinction here. Motion versus action.
Ah, yes. Crucial. Motion is planning, researching, strategizing. It feels productive.
Like making a detailed workout plan.
Right. But action is actually doing the workout. Motion prepares you, but only action gets results. It's easy to get stuck in motion and feel like you're making progress when you're really just spinning your wheels.
Don't mistake planning for doing.
Okay.
Okay. Law 3. Make it easy. This sounds straightforward.
It does, but it's fundamental. Humans naturally follow the law of least effort. We conserve energy. We gravitate towards the easiest option.
So, make good habits ridiculously easy to do.
Exactly. Reduce the friction. Think of that bent garden hose analogy he uses.
Right. You can crank up the water pressure, motivation, or just unkink the hose, reduce friction.
And unkinking the hose is usually easier and more sustainable. So how do you reduce friction? Prime the environment.
Prepare things in advance.
Yeah.
Like setting out your workout clothes the night before.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
Or Oswald Knuckles' idea of resetting the room, putting everything back in its place immediately after use, makes keeping things tidy the easy default.
And conversely, add friction to bad habits.
Yep. Make them inconvenient. Log out of social media apps. Leave your credit card at home if you tend to impulse buy. Hide the remote if you watch too much TV. Small barriers make a difference.
And the 2-minute rule.
Love this one. Scale any new habit down so it takes less than 2 minutes to start.
Read every day becomes read one page. Do yoga becomes take out yoga mat.
Exactly. It's about mastering the art of showing up. Make starting so easy you can't say no. It builds momentum. Once you start, it's often easier to continue. It's a gateway habit.
And for bigger habits, habit shaping.
Right. Build up gradually. Start with the 2-minute version, then slowly increase the duration or difficulty. Like becoming an early riser, wake up just 15 minutes earlier for a week, then another 15. Small, incremental steps.
Making it easy to progress. And automation helps here too.
Massively. Use technology. Set up automatic bill payments or savings transfers. Use apps to block distracting websites. These are one-time actions that lock in good behaviors long-term.
Setting up your future self for success, basically.
That's exactly it. Make the good choice the easy default choice.
Okay, law 3. Make it easy. Reduce friction, start small, automate, final law. Make it satisfying. Why is satisfaction the key?
Because what is immediately rewarded gets repeated. What is immediately punished gets avoided. Our brains evolved to prioritize immediate gratification.
So we need to feel some kind of success right away.
Exactly. Progress is motivating. And a simple way to create that feeling is habit tracking.
Just marking an X on a calendar, that sort of thing.
Yep. Or like Trent Deersmid, moving paper clips from one jar to another for each sales call. It makes the habit obvious. Do I do it? Attractive. Look at my streak. And satisfying. I get to move the clip.
That feeling of don't break the chain.
It's a powerful motivator, but there's a caution here. Goodhart's law.
When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
Right. Don't get so focused on the metric, like steps walked, that you lose sight of the actual goal, being healthier. Don't optimize for the number at the expense of the real purpose.
Keep the bigger picture in mind. And what about slipping up? It happens.
Key principle. Never miss twice. Everyone misses a day. It's fine. The crucial thing is to get back on track immediately the next day. 1 slip-up is an outlier. 2 starts a new negative trend.
Don't let it snowball. Okay, so how do we make bad habits unsatisfying?
We need to add some kind of immediate cost or consequence. That Roger Fisher thought experiment about the nuclear codes is extreme, but illustrates the point.
Yeah, having the codes implanted next to a volunteer's heart definitely makes you think twice.
It makes the consequence immediate and visceral. More practically, Clear suggests a habit contract.
Like a formal agreement with penalties.
Exactly. You write down the habit you commit to and the specific punishment if you fail. Then you get accountability partners, friends, family to sign it and help enforce it.
Like putting money on the line or agreeing to do something embarrassing if you skip a workout.
Precisely. Brian Harris's weight loss contract is a great example for specific habits, specific punishments agreed upon with his wife and coach. It creates immediate, unpleasant consequences for failure, making you more likely to stick to the plan. Just like seatbelt laws add an immediate cost, a fine, to not doing the desired behavior.
So, Law 4. Make it satisfying. Track progress. Don't miss twice. And make bad habits immediately costly.
Got it. Now, the book goes into some advanced stuff, too. Talent, for instance. Right. He acknowledges genetics matter. People are born with different inclinations and abilities. Michael Phelps's body is built for swimming. Hisham El Guerrouj's is built for distance running.
Different physical structures give advantages in different fields.
Exactly. The advice isn't to ignore talent, but to play to your strengths. Choose habits and pursuits where your natural abilities give you an edge. Pick the right game for you.
But it doesn't mean effort isn't needed, right?
Not at all. Genes don't determine your destiny. They clarify where your hard work is likely to pay off most. It's about aligning your effort with your predispositions. And there's that explore-exploit idea.
Trying different things initially, then focusing on what works.
Yeah. Explore options, figure out what suits you and gives good results, then exploit that. But always keep a little room for exploration, too.
Okay, and what about staying motivated when things get boring, which they inevitably do?
The challenge of long-term consistency. He talks about the Goldilocks rule.
Not too hard, not too easy, but just right.
Exactly. We're most motivated when working on tasks that are just slightly challenging, about 4% beyond our current ability, he suggests. Enough to engage us and lead to that flow state, but not so hard, we get discouraged.
Keeps things interesting. But even then, routine can become monotonous.
It can. And that's where the difference between amateurs and professionals comes in, according to Clear.
Professionals stick to the schedule, even when they don't feel like it.
Precisely. Amateurs let boredom derail them. Professionals understand that mastery requires showing up consistently, even on the boring days. They fall in love with boredom, in a sense. They find fascination in the repetition and refinement.
Discipline over fleeting motivation. Makes sense. But then there's a potential downside to good habits. That seems counterintuitive.
It does, but think about it. When a habit becomes truly automatic, you stop consciously thinking about it. That's efficient, but...
You might stop noticing ways to improve. Or even if your performance is slipping slightly.
Exactly. Habits create a foundation, but mastery requires staying sensitive to feedback, looking for improvements. Complacency can set in once something is automatic.
So you need deliberate reflection.
Yes. That's why systems for reflection and review are crucial. Like Pat Riley's career best effort program with the Lakers. They didn't just track points. They tracked effort, teamwork, continuous small improvements.
Aiming for that 1% better constantly.
Right. Clear suggests setting up personal reviews maybe annually, semi-annually. Ask yourself, what went well, what didn't, what are my core values now, how can I raise the bar? It keeps you conscious and striving.
Prevents that automaticity from leading to stagnation.
Exactly. Keeps the improvement process alive.
Okay, and finally, the secret to lasting results. It comes back to the beginning, doesn't it?
It really does. It's the long game. It's compound interest. Small habits seem insignificant at first, but stick with them. They build momentum. Eventually, you hit a tipping point.
And the changes become much more visible and easier to maintain.
Right, and he touches on how happiness isn't just about achieving goals and how emotions really drive our behavior. It all ties together.
So, bringing this all together for everyone listening, the big takeaway from Atomic Habits is really about the immense power of small, consistent actions.
Absolutely. Use the 4 laws, make good habits obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, and those tiny changes will compound into significant results over time.
And it's not just about behavior change, is it? It's about identity.
That's the deepest level. The goal isn't just to do a habit, but to become the kind of person who does that habit naturally. Changing your identity is the ultimate driver.
So as you think about this deep dive, maybe consider, what atomic habits could you start building? What fits your goals, your values.
Remember to start small. Focus on the system, not just the outcome. Be patient.
And maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. Knowing that your habits literally shape who you are, what's one tiny habit you could start today that reflects the person you genuinely aspire to become?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.